We are live now. Please start.
Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends. Thanks for joining this week. It's your friend Lini again, and I know you maybe feel kind of bored with me talking all the time, but today I invite a very valuable guest speaker, Dr. Weijia, who is working for the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, EEA, and also the VP of Engineering for Wanchain Foundation. So I'm pretty sure, the interoperability is quite a critical element in the whole blockchain world, especially when people doing this multi-chain farming, gaming. Definitely, inevitably, you will move your assets from one chain to another one, right? But in doing so, you have to use the cross-chain bridges or the other solutions. Here's a problem: how we can secure all the bridges we are using are safe enough, because we have, frankly speaking, we saw a lot of hacking accidents on the bridges, especially in the past couple of years. So the loss could be very huge. Some of the $100,000, even we saw billions of value loss in the hacking accidents. So we definitely want to know why the cross-chain is so important and the security is that important to all the users. We want to know how. So today we are honored to invite our guest speaker, Dr. Weijia, to tell us some story behind the interoperability and the bridge. Thank you, Dr. Weijia. I know it's pretty early your time here in States, but still we are so honored to having you today. Please.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lini, for the introduction. Yeah, it's a wonderful time to give a speech to the hackathon workshop audience. As Lini mentioned, we have seen kind of a lot of bridge uses for cross-chain operation, and there are security breaches as well. So for us, it's kind of interesting because 4 years ago, when we talk about bridges and cross-chain, not many people actually know about it. And today, it's kind of in crypto world, lots of people are talking about bridges, and there are bridge security hacks already, and this kind of make bridges very, very popular. And it's something, some concept, and something that people really want to know. What is a bridge? How do you secure a bridge? And these kind of things need to be discussed. And I appreciate this great opportunity to talk about the bridges, security, decentralization, and cross-chain as well. So I'm going to share my slides. I think it's on. I'm going to go to the agenda first. Okay, we have a couple agendas here. First one is to give an introduction to bridges, and these bridges are for cross-chain bridges to do operations, asset transfer operations across different blockchains. And then we're going to talk about Wanchain's cross-chain bridge solution, and then we are going to talk about EA cross-chain function call as well. And then we're going to talk about EEA. EEA stands for Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And we're going to talk about Crosschain Interoperability Working Group, the work over layer. Yeah, if you have any question, please just send me a chat, or you'll ask the question after my presentation. Yeah, introduction to bridges. Well, when we talk about cross-chain bridges, the first question you want to ask is, what is bridge and what does bridge do, right? So what does bridge do for cross-chain bridges? Bridge do several things. First, it can swap assets on one blockchain, source chain, for assets on another blockchain. We call it target chain, which is to transfer or swap assets from one blockchain to another one. Yeah, and then that's the second one. And then the asset could be ERC20 asset, a fungible token, or could be ERC721 non-fungible tokens. And today, Hey, Dini.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, but I saw
Yeah,
a message saying, "Are you here now?" Or
oh, sorry, I'm talking to Wenjia, another host.
oh,
not you.
Wenjia.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I get distracted. It said Wenjia, but it's
Okay.
Weijia.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a glitch here. I saw a message to me, but actually it's to another host. So yeah, sorry for bridge. I was responding to the chat. So the bridge can transfer asset from one blockchain to another one with a fungible token ERC20 token or non-fungible token ERC721 token. So it's a transfer of asset from one blockchain to another. And then it can also communicate arbitrary data and message across different blockchains. So bridge can transfer both asset and data and message across different blockchains. And then there's a third use, another use, which is not done yet in the blockchain community world. You can have a cross-chain function calls for interoperability. This is huge. This is to call a smart contract from one blockchain to another. So this is the cross-chain function call, and EA has been working on this, and nobody has the capability to do cross-chain function call right now. So this is another area for bridges. And when we say bridges, it can mean several things. It can mean blockchain bridge, or it can mean cross-chain bridge, or it can mean DeFi bridge, or even token bridge. So when people talk about bridge, they can mean different things. They mean different things, and so when we use it in different contexts, we need to pay attention to what it means actually. Yeah, now I'm going to talk about type of bridges. There are different types of cross-chain bridges. There's a direct bridge, there's a hub-based bridge, layer 1 to layer 1 bridge, and layer 2 bridge. And sometimes people call layer 2 bridge as roll-up, and then there's a layer 2 to layer 2 bridge. And I'm going to explain one by one in next slides. First, about hub bridge, right? So hub bridge is you have a hub, centralized hub, and then you have a different target blockchains. You have blockchain A, blockchain B, blockchain C, and then some source chain here. And when you do the cross-chain transaction, the asset will be transferred to the hub first, and the hub control the security, control the registration of the Stallman nodes, and also control the asset and data flow across different blockchains. So the hub is the centralization of cross-chain operation for different blockchains. And then we know at least two popular kinds of hub-based cross-chain bridges. One is Cosmo, one is Polkadot. And then we have a direct bridge. A direct bridge is for asset transfer and data transfer from one blockchain to another blockchain through the bridge operation of bridge nodes, but the bridge nodes itself doesn't control the asset and data flow. It just serves as the relayer, the Stallman passing of assets. It's a pass-through operation, and then the bridge node, actually the bridge of blockchain control the registration of bridge nodes. So for direct bridge, the asset and the data doesn't go through the bridge. It just goes through from a source chain to a target chain. So this one, the direct bridge, make it the transfer more efficient and doesn't rely on a centralized hub. Yeah, and then this diagram shows the whole landscape of bridge operation for layer 1 and layer 2. If you look at the diagram at the bottom here are layer 1 blockchains. So you have layer 1 to layer 1 bridge that kind of bridge different blockchain together. You can have Wanchain, you can have Ethereum blockchain, you can have Polkadot, Cardano, you can have even Cosmos in layer 1 blockchain, and then you can have a bridge operation to transfer assets from one blockchain to another. And that's the bottom layer over here. And then you have the second layer, which is on top of the bottom layer, And there you can have L1 to L2 bridge, and L2 is very popular. The difference between L2 to L1 bridge and L1 to L1 bridge is that for L1 and L2, there's a coupling of blockchain. So the security of L2 is guaranteed by L1. So sometimes people call L1 to L2 as roll up rather than bridge. But if you use the concept of one blockchain to another, that roll up can be called as bridge as well. So it's just called L1 to L2 bridge. And that bridge has some additional functions to guarantee that all the transactions in L2 can be secured by the security framework of L1. So that's L1 to L2. Because L2 solves the scalability and efficiency issue of L1 and also the gas fee issue of L1. So L2 is very, very popular now. And therefore, L1 with L2 bridge is very important. And then another important concept that comes in is the L2 to L2 bridge, because there are going to be multiple L2 to L2 bridges, and it's very important to bridge the L2 to L2 as well. And Wanchain actually has solution for that, which allow asset to be transferred from one L2 blockchain to another L2 blockchain. And then, of course, then the layer 3, we can call it application layer, will be different applications that can operate on different blockchains, and you can have exchange, payment, settlement, wealth management, and then loans. And these can be on top of L2. And we see a trend of applications running on top of L2 rather than directly on L1. And therefore, the bridging of L2 to L2 is very important. Yeah, and then with more and more bridges coming in, there should be criteria to judge Crosschain bridges. You're going to ask questions such as what is the security of Crosschain bridge, and what is the decentralization of Crosschain bridge, and also the scalability. And these are the questions that need to be asked when you are evaluating bridges. Yeah, and Wanchain is a project that's focused on building bridges for Crosschain operations. It has been building bridges for over 4 years, and Wanchain was the first actually project that built a bridge to connect Ethereum blockchain with Wanchain, and then Wanchain also built bridges to connect to Polkadot, to connect to Bitcoin and a lot of layer 1 blockchain, and they also connect with layer 2 as well. So it'd be interesting to see how a bridge is built with a Wanchain's example. Yeah, this is Wanchain's bridge is built with a node called Stallman node. A Stallman node is a node that connects to both a source chain and then the target chain. The Stallman node actually watch events in the source chain. If there's a cross-chain operation, it's going to analyze the operation and see the target chain, and then mint or transfer asset to the target chain based on the specification that's done with the cross-chain operation on the source chain. And then the uniqueness of Wanchain's blockchain bridge node is that first is secure, is using MPC, multi-party computing, to secure the bridge and to prevent the collusion. And second thing is that it actually use randomness to increase the security. So every month there's a change of Stallman node. It's decentralized. And also Stallman's node actually allows both partners and delegators to stake their asset to the bridge. And by staking the asset, it prevents collusion of running the bridge node, because a bridge node can sometimes they can collude to steal the fund from the bridge. With Wanchain's cross-chain staking mechanism, there will be a penalty for for the node to do something wrong. If even the node is down, there will be a penalty for that. So it prevents both the inactiveness and also prevent collusion for a Stallman node. And the way the Stallman node work is that there's an enrollment period. This is every month. So at the beginning of the month, there will be a registration of the bridges, and then the bridge node put the stake to secure the bridge, and then a certain number of bridge nodes are selected to operate for each period. And this is just everything is automatic, and then the operation setup is for these nodes to set up a Stallman group, and then they create their private key share themselves, and then they need to sign each transaction with the private key share they have. So nobody knows the whole thing. Every node work on their own privacy and the security, and then they have to group all these side contract transactions together and then send it to the blockchain. So every month there's a rotation of Stallman node. So it's both secure and also decentralized. Yeah, so this is the Wanchain, the Crosschain mechanism. And then I want to mention another use case, another solution that's very, very promising. It's from consensus, and it's under working with EEA and also Wanchain and other companies helping to promote Crosschain function call for smart contract. So basically, you have different blockchains for each boxes here. There are multiple boxes here, and then each blockchain will have its own smart contract. And this smart contract has its own functions and has its uses. And then the user just need to call a smart contract in a source chain, and then it's going to have function call to different blockchain as well for dependencies. And then this is just like 3 different blockchains as one blockchain, and you have different smart contracts or different blockchains, but they are integrated together. You can call a blockchain in a blockchain smart contract in a particular blockchain. You just need to say that I'm calling a blockchain on the logistic blockchain. Then it's called a smart contract on the logistic blockchain, and then you just can reach there and then wait for the return, and then you operate for the next blockchain. Yeah, this is the function flow. You have a trade wallet contract. You want to trade good with someone, and then you can call a smart contract in that trade source chain, and then from there it goes to the logistic blockchain to execute the contract over there, and then you go to Oracle, and then you go to Balance, and then you go to the stock contract to operate the whole thing over there across different blockchains, but use one single smart contract as a source smart contract, and then calling different blockchain functions. Yeah, and this is another illustration. Different layers represent different blockchain, and then you have a different smart contract on different blockchains. And then when you go through the sequence of calling, it actually goes to different blockchain smart contracts. So this would solve a lot of Crosschain interoperability issues, because you can just simply write a smart contract that is fully Crosschain. Yeah, and this is another workflow. Yeah, and EEA Ethereum Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is working on the specification to produce a standard for Crosschain function call specifications. Yeah, so I'm going to mention about the EEA's work. EEA Enterprise Ethereum Alliance has a Crosschain Interoperability working group. We have been working on the use case and also working on different guidelines and then specifications. And then the participating companies such as Consensus, Kinematics, Wanchain can work on the solutions based on the specification. Yeah, EA published the Crosschain Interoperability use case already, and there are a couple of Crosschain use cases that are very, very interesting, and we have Crosschain DeFi, and this a lot of solutions have been released to solve a Crosschain DeFi problem, and then there are also Crosschain key management, and then also Crosschain across different regions and with transparency and also with privacy, and that's another thing that can be done. It's not done today yet. And then we also can have a Crosschain information syndication, which means that you can gather information from different blockchains and present it in the way that's similar to Google. Let's aggregate information from different websites and then present it as a search result. So information syndication is to gather information from different blockchains and present it as a holistic data to the user. And then you can also have a Oracle serving as a Crosschain, and that's another big area. And I think Chainlink is working on that as well. And then we can have nation-state sovereign data. This is an area that different government may have their own regulation, and when you do the Crosschain, you need to consider these special regulation as well. We can do some rule checking on Crosschain operation, and then also Crosschain charity. You can just have people contribute different assets from different blockchain for charity purpose. So there are a lot of Crosschain use cases, and today in the crypto world, the focus is still on Crosschain DeFi, but there are other things that are interesting as well. Yeah, and then we talk about decentralization guideline. The Crosschain touches different layers. It touches the blockchain layer, consensus layer, and also the bridge layer, and then the smart contract layer. So when we talk about all these components, these different layers, the decentralization need to be considered as well. So when you evaluate a Crosschain bridge, you need to look at decentralization. Do the bridge nodes change every month, or they do not change at all? And a lot of times, some bridge may claim that they are decentralized, but their bridge node never change, and that is not decentralization, because if you have a couple of bridge nodes that operate forever, then there is a decentralization issue there. Yeah, and then another thing, another important, very, very important criteria is the security. How do you evaluate the security of a Crosschain bridge? And then a couple of factors to consider, because Crosschain operation is to transfer asset from one source chain to a target chain. It's important to know that all the security issues in the source chain will come to a Crosschain bridge. So the source chain security is very important, and that's why Vitalik published a paper saying that, a post saying that if the source chain has 51% attack, then there is issue for Crosschain bridge. Yeah, and I think he's right to some extent, but at the same time, Crosschain bridge can also overcome the 51% attack if there's a rollback mechanism for a bridge as well. And also there's a target chain security as well. And then bridge security, this is a bridge specific. And then also there are different Crosschain layers. Even the web layer may have security consideration that you need to think about. And then the staking and slashing is important, because without staking, the bridge node can collude at some point to steal the fund in the bridge. So there should be a staking and slashing mechanism for bridge operation, and this is an important factor for security consideration. And then randomness is very important, to randomly select nodes to operate on the bridge operation. And this is similar to POS, proof of stake. The randomness allows a random node to be selected to propose blocks, and for bridge the same. It should be randomly selected bridge nodes to operate on the Crosschain transactions. Yeah, these are the factors for security, and then all the source chain security issues, and all the the layer issues will impact the bridge operations. It's very important to evaluate all these security factors for different layer of bridge operations. Another thing to consider is the Crosschain emergency handling, because things can go wrong in the source chain, things can go wrong in the target chain. So it would be important to consider factors such as can you pause the bridge? Can the community make a decision to pause the bridge? It's just like DAO hack back in 2016 when Ethereum was hacked. Do you need to pause the operation, or you do some fork or something? So you need to think about some factors. And if we need to pause the bridge, who made that decision? Do you have a community effective enough to make some decision on that? And also, it'd be good to take some snapshot of blockchain state, so that in case there's a 51% attack, there is an opportunity to compensate somehow to the loss of users' asset through some bridging operation, and taking a snapshot to know exactly what happened before the attack. And also, it's important to cap the bridge. You just cannot have like $1 million to secure the bridge, but you actually have 1 billion across bridge operations. The asset going through the bridge should be capped, and there should be a quota for cross-chain asset transfer. And also, there should be some effective upgrade paths, because bridge is decentralized as well. When you have a patch to the bridge node, it needs to go out effectively to all the bridge nodes. And then there should be a staking and slashing mechanism in case some bridge node decide to do something that's not good. There is a mechanism to slash the asset they stake to the bridge registry. Yeah, and this is the Crosschain architecture is quite complex. This is from EA. Yeah, I'm not going through the detail here. And I think this Crosschain architecture has been published by EA. I think if you want to know detail on that, you can go to EA's website and look for EA Crosschain operation, and that has a use document. And it has that architecture, that diagram you can look at. Yeah, and then the EA the Crosschain Interoperability work group is a work group dedicated to improve the specification and status of Crosschain operation, because we have seen more need for public to public blockchain operation, and also public to private blockchain operations. And EA members all pointing out that Crosschain interoperability is one of the most important things for the crypto community. Yeah, and EA has done a lot of work already and produced some specification already. And we welcome a different project to join EA Interoperability Work Group to work together with companies such as Wanchain, such as Consensus, and Kinematics to push out the specifications and guidelines for Crosschain interoperability. Yeah, and well, I want to thank you very much for this workshop, and I'm going to send it back to Lini.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weijia. So thank you very much. So I think it's very useful presentation that we first time hear such a lot of interoperability things has been going in the EEA, Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. I bet definitely if we got time, we should visit the EA's official website to check more references and documentations. And thank you again, Dr. Weijia. Since due to the time difference, I think you're still very early in your time to get some sleep if you want. And love to see you next time. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. Weijia.
Well, thank you, Lini. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so next, finally we have Miss Wenjia with us. So how about say hi to the audience now, Wenjia?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm the host today, but with some problem with my VPN, I am late 4 minutes. But finally I'm here now.
Yeah, nice to see you. So actually, you missed something, Wenjia. You know, our previous guest speaker is Dr. Weijia, and you are Wenjia.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
actually,
think about any
we are almost the
relation
same
between you
name.
two. Okay, let me ask you a question. Did you, Wenjia, execute the cross-chain transaction yourself? Not really.
Not really, just one or two
Okay.
times, because I'm not a
Okay.
professional.
Okay, I see. But the next question is, I know you are very active in the crypto world. I mean, buying
little bit.
tokens, investing projects. Did you have
And-
any projects that rug pulled and get your money?
AVAX. I
Tell
have
us
to say AVAX is my largest investment, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So our next guest speaker is very special. So the lady, she's from RugDoc, but don't get cheated by the name RugDoc. So actually, it's a DAO.
Yeah, it's famous. It's very famous.
It's very famous, yes. So the lady is going to give us a presentation on how to build a very secure project from the code's perspective and trying to protect your codes, protect your project as bulletproof as possible. And besides,
it's a very important topic.
Yeah, and she's also going to give us some illustrations on how you design your token distribution, which is the tokenomics. So I think that will be quite fun presentation, but a bit long. But so let's hear what the lady is
because
going to
it's
say.
fun, so never will be long. Okay.
Okay. Welcome from RugDoc.
Yeah, welcome.
First, let's give a little introduction in case you don't know who we are. We are RugDoc.io, and we're a community-oriented crowdsourced team of DeFi users. So we are really a project that is from the community and we're by the community. We really just are a pile of community people who were tired of getting scammed, decided to teach ourselves Solidity and learn how to basically review contracts. And so now we provide ethical and independent project reviews for all manner of DeFi projects, from like NFTs, tokens, games, farms, DEXs, and aggregators. And we do that all for free. So anybody can come on in and request a review for any of the above DeFi projects, submit the contracts to us, and we will theoretically get it all done and reviewed within 36 hours. This is not to say we're an audit. We're not an audit. We're a review. There's a reason that we can get dozens of these things done every day, and that's because we're not providing, an intense audit. But we, of course, work with one of our partners, Paladin, to provide audits when they're needed. But basically, we're always trying to make a great, free, easy resource for the DeFi community. We want to be able to be building tools for the community, so we do. We want to be able to educate the community and empower them, and so that's exactly what we do here. And part of the way that we do this is by building out a ecosystem built around community security. Some of that relies on safety. So these are going to be things like our contract reviews and just education that's going to teach people what to look for and what types of things that they want to consider about code elements or token valuations, or just generally how to compare DEXs or how to compare audits. We also keep a pretty large and very active community. So we're always around on Twitter and on Telegram, and on multiple other social media platforms, answering questions and just general DeFi chatter. We provide a lot of more degen activities as well. So one of the ways that we do that is by creating basically specific communities for like these more, fast and just generally more degen aping sorts of activities. And then we provide a lot of tools and just other resources as well. So we create things that users may want in order to, get out of protocols or figure out how to become better investors. And we also create a lot of tools and resources for our developer community. And that can be everything from helping them develop their project, answering questions, helping them with all sorts of pre-launch problems that they might have, and supporting them through marketing services, just getting people on board and getting our community on board with their project, and lots of ways that we work with both our users and our developers. Our goal is to make DeFi safer. And part of the reason and part of how we make DeFi safer is, like I said, we focus on both user resources and developer resources. On the user end, we're really working on tools, and these tools are going to be things like an LP breaker tool. So they literally can just break up an LP if they've messed around in a custom DEX and it just shuts down, or maybe it fails. We create honeypot token checkers, which will check for basic honeypot scams, emergency withdraw and revoke tools that work on pretty much every chain and on unverified contracts. We really just want to be able to empower users to feel like they make better decisions through our tools, education, and reviews. On the developer side, though, we really focus on proper audits when needed. If a review is just not going to cover it, we want to be able to work with them every step of the way with Paladin in getting them proper contract reviews. We also offer consultation services to really make sure and discuss all sorts of possibilities and how to really hone and improve a project before it launches, since we're in the unique position of having been here a while and having looked at thousands of DeFi projects at this point. I like to think we give pretty good advice. And then we also offer security suite services, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And those tend to just increase user confidence. And these are going to be things like free liquidity locking or KYC services. So we're trying to just help everybody get along a little bit better and make this a safer and more enjoyable experience for the most people we can. Let's talk first about some of the most common rugs and scams that are out there. So I would say the most detrimental, the most absolutely tragic experience is going to be a hard rug or a hard exploit. And all of these words are very subjective because none of these words really have any one particular definition. You're not going to find any of these words in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. But commonly, hard rugs are going to refer to these catastrophic losses where a user interacts with a contract and that contract is able to just steal all of their tokens or all of their LP. They just take it all and they're probably never going to see that again. So a user will just think that they're, I don't know, maybe in a yield farm throwing in their ETH BNB pair, and next thing you know, their ETH BNB has been eaten by this protocol and is in a dev wallet and tornadoed out, and they're never going to see it again. This is the main focus that we work on at RugDoc, trying to prevent these because, again, they're the most catastrophic and there's not much you can do once it happens. You can't really recover it in 99.9% of cases. Much more common and things that we still try and work with is the community really cares about soft rugs, and the community is going to shout rug every time something happens, and it's not necessarily rug, right? A token price can just naturally go down and the community will say it's a rug, and it's not. The token just went down, and that is how it is. But in a soft rug, it usually happens with a malicious intent where the developer has allocated a large amount of tokens and then just cashes out and crashes the price. Or they just, maybe just straight up abandon a project, or just these more subtle human factors that can occur. So they're rarely as catastrophic as a hard rug, but for the user, they can still result in very serious losses. Honeypot scams are a token problem, and it basically means that a user has bought a token and they can never sell their token again. And users are particularly aware of this sorts of scam because there's so many token buyers out there. There's a lot of retail overlap, and it's not just, your DeFi people who are, already knowing how to yield farm or aggregate or play games. So in the honeypot scam, basically the user buys a token that they can never sell. So the price looks like it's constantly going up. So the user gets really excited when they see their $100 dog token go all the way up to $10,000. They try and cash it out and they can't sell because the only person that can sell it is the dev, and they do. And then they crash the price and they walk away with all the funds. Another one of the scams that is fairly common is going to be just a pre-sale theft. And these there's honestly not much you can do about. So we're just really trying and educate users for this type of a theft, that resale is not a guarantee. This is something that users are aware of, and it's something that you as a developer need to be cautious when you're embarking on a pre-sale to really gain community trust and to actually follow through on dates and times and deadlines, or else your community is going to be very nervous that you've just walked away with a pre-sale and they've just given you all of their funds and all of their USDC and you've just left. And then finally, there's just failure to receive like an airdrop or an NFT or some promised good. I would say this is probably like the most mild of everything because, you know, it's just someone who's saying, oh, if you invest by tomorrow or if you buy 100 of my dog coins, you'll get an exclusive airdrop, and you don't get the airdrop. But you still have your dog coins and you still have your underlying assets. But still, you know, these are all scams that users are going to be very aware of and they're going to be on the lookout for. So the things that you as a developer really need to be considering how you're going to approach your language and approach your follow through to make sure that your users are confident that you're not trying to like pull one of these scams. Some red flags for users is going to be, honestly, most users understand in DeFi that the code is going to rule everything. So they understand that what is written in a smart contract lays out what a project can and cannot do. So some more savvy users, they're actually going to be able to go through the contract and they're going to be able to just like Control F for basic functions that make them nervous, or just even look through and they'll see something that says like mint, or they'll see something that says transfer, and they might have questions about that. So it is important to think about like how your contracts look and how your contracts are notated, because, you know, some users will go through your codes and they will start to pick up what could be red flags or what they think are red flags. Users also care deeply about social and community activity. So basically, you want to make sure that when you have launched your project, that your socials and community is built to really empower users and to make them feel like this is a friendly and safe environment, and that whatever your personality is and whatever type of user you're trying to attract, this is a good home for them. So you want to be regular. You want to have mods who are there like 24/7, because do remember, DeFi is 24/7, 365. So even if it's Sunday night at 2 a.m. on a holiday, you know, there's plenty of people in the world who it is Monday afternoon and it is just another day in DeFi. And if your chats are unmoderated, you know, things can start to get hectic. You can start to get spam all in there, or porn, or goodness knows what going on in your chats and in your community. And it just doesn't look like it's a healthy, secure, or, you know, a place that users are going to want to hang out in. Users also look for developer history if you have one. So I'd say most users really do like to know what your history is, especially if you have previous history in DeFi. They want to hear about what you and your team have done, what other projects you've worked with, hopefully they're projects that they're familiar with and that they enjoyed, or how basically like who you are, what background you came from. Are you a developer? Were you I don't know, a graphics designer? You know, they want to hear about that sort of stuff. And pending what your history is, or if you're associated with some sort of a project that, I don't know, a user finds negative, or they just like think your history for some reason is unqualified, you know, that could pop up as a red flag for them too. Sudden stealth launches. Of course, there are a couple situations where this may be appropriate if, I don't know, you know that you're about to get swarmed by bots when you launch your project. But sudden stealth launches usually freak users out a little bit, because most projects just suddenly appear out of nowhere without talking to anybody, or without launching soft socials, or without forming a partnership, or without talking to the community. They think it's just going to try and like pull some sort of a cheap scam and disappear. Unverified contracts. This is something that we particularly have pressed on with our users to look for. If you can't read a contract, run away. It's usually very easy to verify your contracts. So the second that your project is about to go live, and honestly, before your project is about to go live, make sure your contracts are verified, because users want to, at least, even if they can't understand everything that's in the contract, they want to feel secure that someone can look at this contract and that it's verified, and that, you know, this is not some mystery box that they just have to trust. Some of our more savvy DeFi users, we've talked and educated about the importance of understanding a proxy contract and what it means. Of course, there are useful moments for proxies. They can be incredible tools to use, but most users are also aware that a proxy contract means that you can just upload anything. So when you have a proxy contract, you need to be able to explain to your community exactly what it's there for. And honestly, you should be able to let them view a verified contract of what exactly is in the proxy, and what could be lined up, as well as probably keep like a longer time lock on that sort of a situation. Finally, migrators. This one's a bit controversial because, of course, like proxies, migrators can have a very important place in the world, but they're also the most common scam out there. So why are migrators red flags? Well, I can tell you, as someone who deals with community security and basically reviews contracts for a living now, most of our security alerts are migrators, and they are highly accurate. Out of all of the alerts that we've ever had for projects that have migrators, 90% of them have scammed. So there's only 2 that are still active. Pretty much of all of our alerts, they can play a valid role, but they're rarely used in legitimate projects. If you even think of the PancakeSwap situation, which a lot of people will, oh, PancakeSwap has a migrator. They actually didn't use their migrator to do their migration, and they did not implement a migrator in their version 2 contracts. So rarely are migrators used successfully in legitimate contracts. These are usually where you want to use strategies or maybe a proxy, because migrators are just commonly cheap scams. They're very low effort, and it's honestly a shocking amount of the DeFi scams out there are just migrators. And the community knows to look for them, and they get kind of freaked out when they see a migrator now. All right, so that's enough of the background. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why you guys are here, because you want to hear about how to launch a DeFi project that hopefully doesn't suck and is safe. So in this part, I'm going to go through and talk about all sorts of elements that you're going to want to understand when you're building a protocol. And this can be anything. This can be an NFT, this can be a token, this can be a farm, this can be some sort of a crazy swap, or this could be like a DAO. All of these things are going to be relevant so long as you're like employing decentralized assets. So we're going to talk a little about a basic like supply and demand. We're going to talk a little bit about just like tokenomics, allocations that you want to think about, emissions, other elements that are going to go in your code, different types of liquidity and what you're going to want to think about with your liquidity, how you're going to assemble a team, security, what your options even are, and what sorts of things that you want to be thinking about in terms of creating a secure protocol, because if your protocol is secure, everybody has a good time. And then finally, we want to talk about like sustainability. And these are going to be things like setting up a treasury, making sure that you know your investor, and just being able to move and be in the right place at the right time and move the trends in DeFi, because DeFi moves fast. And if you're not here at the right time, you can get left behind. So let's talk a little about supply and demand. What is supply? Supply is arguably one of the most crucial factors in design of tokenomics and understanding the value of a token or a coin. Why? It's because it determines the market cap and valuation of your token. So generally in crypto, we need to specify the type of supply, because there are 3 types of supply out there. There's the circulating supply, total supply, and the maximum supply. And the supply of your token will change over the course of its lifetime due to minting and emissions, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So when we're talking about the circulating supply, this refers to tokens that are accessible to the public at any specific point in time. This is in contrast to the total supply, which is going to tell you the number of coins in existence, which is going to be like the number of coins already issued minus the coins that have already been burned or destroyed to control your supply. The total supply is going to be the total amount of the circulating supply of coins that are locked and destroyed. So it's going to be all the tokens that are out there. The maximum supply is going to be the maximum amount of coins that will ever exist. And this can include things that are not yet minted or made available. So this is why we need to specify when we're talking about supply, what we're talking about, because these 3 different types of supply are going to change throughout the lifetime of your project. Supply alongside price is going to talk about your market capitalization, which is one of the best measures of value for an asset or security. And most users understand this. So they're going to want to make sure that they understand the market cap, and part of that is going to come from your supply calculations. It is important that when we're talking about market cap, the key phrase of tokens is the in circulation supply, because almost every project has tokens that are not in circulation if they've been mined or minted or they're lost or they're locked. So this is a circulating supply problem. The increasing number of coins over its lifetime, especially if you have one of these like high emissions tokens, which is most DeFi projects, you know, this is going to lead you to try and consider how you need to control your supply. And so considering your initial mint, the token cap, and the emissions rate are going to be critical factors in determining your value through supply and by controlling supply. And some ways you can control your supply are going to be by controlling your mint and emissions rate, or by doing things like burns or locking or vesting or staking. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Most tokens in DeFi have absolutely massive supplies, right? So if you think about it, Doge is one of the largest assets by market cap, and it's minted 100 billion coins within the first 2 years, which is reflected in the incredibly low price per token, which you can compare to something like Bitcoin, which only ever has a supply of 21 million coins at the end of its mining period. So you can kind of see a little bit here how your supply is going to influence your tokenomics and your token value price, right? We can consider something like a coin such as Bitcoin or a coin like YFI, which is going to be able to grow more in price given its current market capitalization, compared to Doge, which has like a tens of billions market cap due to the differences in supply, which is something to consider as a developer during design, as well as to know when you're an investor. Let's talk a little bit more about tokenomics, because I did just throw that word out there. Tokenomics is a word commonly used in the crypto space when talking about the economics of tokens, and it basically means how the project is structured to deliver the tokens to your users, as well as your team, your advisors, marketing, and any other use that's out there. It's a super broad word, and again, you're not going to find this word defined in any one particular way in any one particular dictionary. But let's talk a little bit about these like economic factors that you're going to want to think about with your tokens and assets. One of the things that you need to think about when you're drawing up your documents to talk about your tokenomics or even explain your tokenomics to your users is how you describe what you're doing. And I like to talk about the rule of KISS. Okay, keep it simple, stupid. Because investors are going to ask repeatedly for a description of your tokenomics. They're going to ask repeatedly for your roadmap and how it relates to tokenomics. So you're going to want to keep it short, simple, and easy to understand. Why do we care about this so much? Because DeFi is international, and you can be having a conversation with someone from Malaysia, China, Turkey, and the US all at the same exact time. So if the investor's grasp on whatever the main language for your project isn't at a high level, which is honestly going to be a lot of your users, you're going to lose that investor since they won't understand how the project works and they're going to care about it. So again, you need to think about your tokenomics, and especially how you're going to describe your tokenomics to your community. Let's talk a little bit about the two most common types of tokenomics out there, inflationary and deflationary. In inflationary tokenomics, it means that your token does not have a maximum supply, and it emits at a steady and generally large amount per block. Most tokens are established in such a way that these new coins are created on a regular basis, infinite. So they're basically these infinitely minting tokens that have high emissions rates, and you see a lot of these in things like yield farms that have very high APR. If a token has a limit on how many coins will ever be created, it will have a maximum supply, which will limit the supply end of the supply and demand problem. But when you're infinitely minting tokens, that's obviously going to change because you're never going to have a limit on how many tokens you can create. So you need to consider what method you want to go with. When you have an inflationary token, it's going to have high APR. You're going to get a lot of coins, but unfortunately, you can reduce the value of your coins in circulation and your supply can get out of control. You're also going to need to figure out how to deal with your inflation, because too much inflation is going to reduce the value of your coins. And so it's going to impact your prices. So if we think of something like cake, pancake swap, it's a good example of inflationary tokenomics because the inflation keeps the APR pretty high, but they also carefully control the emissions and how they're going to like burn things and lock things, and they make sure the supply doesn't get out of hand. So you're probably going to need to figure out how you need to control your supply, and that could be manual burns, or it could be some sort of a built-in burn, or maybe it's going to be a lock period, or maybe it's going to be some sort of a buyback program. This is going to mean that you need a calculated and active team that's able to make tough decisions at any time to maximize the upside of this method. So again, inflationary tokenomics can be good. It's incredibly common, but it's actually the most complicated tokenomics method that we have in DeFi because it requires an on top of a team. When you have deflationary tokenomics, this is the exact opposite. So it pretty much means your token has maximum supply, reduced emissions over time, or both. And so it basically creates a reduction of your supply over time, which creates a shortage of supply. This means that your token is more scarce, and it means that your token probably has more value. Not always, but just generally. Basically, deflationary assets are fairly stable. But they come at the price of usually there's reduced emissions, which means that your APR is going to be lower, which means that your community may not think that this is super awesome. Deflation can make your asset very valuable. Think of Bitcoin again with its 21 million total mint, and the fact that its block is cut in half every 4 years. But again, you can negatively affect your APR, you can turn off potential new investors. And so to maximize the upside with a deflationary method, you probably want to start with a large maximum supply, burn some tokens manually as a first line of defense, instead of reducing emissions if the price starts to go down, and take it from there and just try and adjust your emissions slowly. These are usually more long-term considerations or things that have smaller amounts of pools. But if you're going to build on top of whatever your project is with additional strategies, like maybe you make a farm and you build a vault on top of that and a stable swap on top of that and other features, deflationary tokenomics can be a really good thing because you want to basically be able to create users who are in there for the long haul as you slowly develop and roll out features. All right, let's talk a little bit more about tokenomics. Coins can be created two ways usually in DeFi: fair launch or pre-mined. In a fair launch, there are no token allocations at the initial minting and mining process. You basically start from zero, and anyone who wants to mine, mint, or own a coin theoretically has an equal opportunity to grab one at the start. Whereas when you have a pre-mine or pre-mint situation, there's an allocation that the team behind the project has mined or minted. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but your community will probably notice. And if you do have like a pre-mine, it's something to consider how you're holding your funds, who has access to the funds, and what your community understands you're doing with that pre-mine pre-mint, because it could be a dump risk to them. If too many tokens are allocated to the team, it can also limit the growth of your price, right? Because if your team is holding 70% of the tokens, not only is this a dump risk, it basically means that you only have the ability of 30% of a market to grow on, which is not enough. So that's something to consider. Other factors that can impact your supply and valuation as it relates to tokens are going to be your vesting and your staking. So vesting applies to your pre-mined, pre-minted coins and refers to the allocation schedule of these coins. So basically, if you have a pre-mine or pre-mint coin, you get to lock up a certain percentage of these tokens and gradually release them over time. So the user cannot just sell everything, and you cannot just sell everything all at once. This method generally increases the confidence of coin holders that the market won't just be flooded by private investors or venture capitalists or the team, right? So this does tend to increase your user confidence. But when you're thinking about your vesting schedules and how much gets released, these could cause significant cliffs, such as a large percentage being vested at regular intervals can totally kill a price if people start to sell their tranches. Usually vesting schedules are logical and take place slowly over many months or years, even in bits and pieces. And this is what's going to keep your token price like the most stable. Some coins also build in staking features, right? So a staking feature is going to be where these coins or tokens are usually locked up for some period in return for a reward or interest rate. So if a token price shoots up while a user has it staked, it will not be on any exchange which cuts the supply to boost the price, but the users who staked can't exit the locked asset until their staking period is over. So basically, this also means that staking can be a gamble, because if you can't like remove your stake, if you can't remove your liquidity, staking, you know, it's a gamble. Maybe it'll go up, maybe it won't. It's locked. There's nothing you can do about it. All of this, though, should make you think that ultimately your token value relates to the market basics of supply and demand. As a new market maker, as a developer, you're going to want to pay close attention to ways to control your supply of continuous tokens and increase your demand for them. Maybe you want to think about building in token caps to limit the number. You know, this could maintain a constant supply so that if your demand rises or stays constant, the value of the token will increase. Even if you do create a token with infinite or very large mints, you can still control supply with buybacks and burns, or destroy them to encourage appreciation of your asset. So these are all many factors that you're going to want to think about to determine the value of your token. And frankly, well, you can do things like these buybacks and burns and control your vesting and staking schedules and figure out if you want to pre-mine or pre-mint, and figure out if you want like deflationary or inflationary tokenomics. Honestly, there's a lot of factors that are just straight up out of your control because the market is illogical and unpredictable. The power of hype and sentiment cannot be understated here. But if you design your tokenomics to account for and control your supply in using actual logic implementation, you can build user trust and organically add value to your token and just play, you know, hopefully the long game. All right. So next, let's talk a little bit about allocations for the team. Some projects like to talk about giving themselves zero allocation because they think it's going to increase their user confidence, because if the users think that the team is taking zero of the tokens, that means that they, the users, and the free market can take 100% of the tokens. This is a bit of a fallacy, though, because it's not actually that great. The only time that this is actually a reasonable option of the team not taking any allocation for their project is where there's a massive benefactor supporting the project. Like, say you are just getting tons and tons of funds from someone like Binance, you know, maybe you can take no allocation, but frankly, developers, you're going to need funds to sustain your project, especially if you're trying to just not crash and burn in like, you know, a week or two. Running a project is expensive. You know, if you have to hire teams, when you're hiring, you know, graphics teams or front-end developers or full stack, it gets very expensive very fast, depending on what sort of a project you're trying to make. Try to allocate 14 to 40% of the tokens for treasury, team, and marketing expenses. It's generally a good thing to also figure out how you can create consistent revenue, but also whatever your allocation design is, make sure you tell the users, make sure it's all written out there in black and white, and that you are going to take, say, 20% of the tokens. Of those, 5% goes to the team, and, you know, 15% goes to treasury marketing. You know, you're going to want to tell people where the funds are going, because this is the blockchain. People can see where every transaction goes, and when they see money stacking up in wallets, or every time they trade a token, a fraction of it goes to a wallet, you need to be able to account to that to your community. Emissions. So back to a little bit more of tokenomics and value stuff. Emissions are going to refer to how many of your native tokens are minted every block. An emission rate that's too high will give you really high APRs, which your Gen users will absolutely love. But again, this is going to reflect in inflationary tokenomics, and it's going to overinflate your token supply, which could cause a price crash of your token. Opposite, if you have an emission rate that is too low, it might provide more realistic APR and more consistent token growth, but it could result in a really boring farming experience for your users. So you just might not get much buy-in to begin with. You need to offer people generally something when you start, you know, some sort of a give back to encourage the community to buy into your token or to buy into your DAO. Do keep in mind that especially if you're a farm or some sort of a farm-like project, you need to consider how you're allocating your native and non-native assets, right? Because by distributing tokens to non-native pools, your pools are going to be earning your native token for free, which means they don't need to have any exposure to the native token, and this is going to incentivize investors to dump the token faster. What I would say is generally start with 70% of your emissions going to the native liquidity and staking, regardless of, you know, unless you're an NFT or something like that. Like if you're dealing with some sort of a token or farm, start with approximately 70% of your emissions going to native liquidity and staking, and then you can adjust it from there. That should hopefully prevent some of your user dump. So let's talk a little bit more about liquidity. So liquidity is going to be the sum of the value stored in all your native LP pair. And this value is pretty important because it represents the native token's resistance to price movement. It's considered to be like the blood in the pig. Like I haven't heard too many people use that recently, but it's more like, you know, your business school types will sometimes pull that one out. Unless there are multiple native assets, your total native liquidity, your TNL, is going to be double the amount of real coins, right? One thing that you're going to want to be thinking about is how investors perceive your total native liquidity to your total value locked, your TVL ratio. Now, normally most projects will only display the TVL, not the TNL, but being able to calculate your TNL to TVL as a developer is really important because one of the most reliable indicators of project health. It's going to show you the relationship between how much value can be extracted from your project and how much value is in pursuing that extraction. When you're considering how much liquidity to provide in your brand new project, this is going to be a key contributor to how you start off and how your project is going to survive. It's going to basically reflect the amount of money available to buffer against token price movements or for investors to extract. If you have a smaller amount of liquidity add, it means that you're going to have a massive spike in value of your asset during your token launch, but it also means that you're going to have a massive crash once everything opens up and your project really starts. It's just going to crash and burn. And this can be a very bad user experience, and it's going to detract a lot of people when they see, you know, some sort of a tragic, you know, 80% dump. The better user experience comes from providing enough tokens to prevent this kind of crash at the beginning. But it's also important to understand that you're going to get some reduction in price anyways, because your hype people are going to be looking to dump your token anyways and turn a quick profit, because that's kind of the nature of a lot of DeFi at this moment. If your liquidity is locked or burn, this is something that users really look for and they really care about because it can represent a team's financial commitment to the project. But it can also represent another hidden factor, and that's going to be the amount of team liquidity provided could deal with how scammy. You know, if there's like a fair launch and it's rigged for insiders, it could start out with a suspiciously low amount of team liquidity followed by like bot buys, and you know, this is just not a great idea. So providing team liquidity at a fair value usually prevents this sort of stuff from occurring. So yeah, we already talked a little bit about the golden ratio for farms and staking, and that's going to be looking at your total native liquidity for your TVL ratio to like check for health. All right, let's talk a little bit about overcoming hype cycles. Cryptocurrencies live and die by hype cycles, which is going to be that giant explosion of activity at a project launch, huge volume, and it's going to push the asset to some incredible heights due to FOMO and low liquidity, and then you're going to crash and burn. Sometimes to amazing amounts. I've seen things crash and like draw down 99% in a few hours. Hopefully you don't crash and burn by 90%, but some sort of a drop down when you leave your hype cycle is going to be expected, so you need to plan accordingly. Honestly, being able to survive your dip and mitigate damage is the breaking for like why so many projects fail and why some succeed, because you're going to be able to get investors to like buy back in. This is usually the point where your marketing budget, and remember we need a team allocation, is going to need to go into full effect, because once you lose the initial hype, a lot of investors are just going to try and move on. So if you can like keep people interested and keep them moving and allocate a budget for that, or like give them, you know, some sort of a separate price discussion channel so your main channel isn't flooded with negative price talk, that is so important, because your goal is to hold the attention of these investors to ensure your project has the investor base to increase price and liquidity for a longer time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some special elements, right? There's a lot of different types of things that a user is going to look for, and it's really important to be able to know your community when we're talking about this. A special element is going to be, why would someone actually want to hold your native asset instead of just dumping it or trading it or just immediately moving on? And in these sorts of things, you're really going to want to know who your investor is, and you're going to want to be able to listen to the feedback of your community investors, right? Who's looking into your project and who wants it? How can you give utility to your token, right? Or to your asset? Does your token give them governance rights, or maybe profit or revenue sharing, or some sort of an exclusive earning potential? Maybe you're like Bored Ape Yacht Club and you get some sort of a cool membership and like crazy parties or events. Maybe it's an exclusive payment methods or a way to work with a partner of yours. These are all things that you're going to want to consider after your launch and have lined up probably like at your launch to tell your community why they should be holding whatever your asset is. All right, your team. The importance of your team cannot be understated. So one of the things that you're going to want to think about is seniority matters. It really does. I know the DeFi space is so new and it's really hard to be able to get someone who's particular senior, but honestly, the wisdom, experience, and the network that comes with somebody who's been around the block with crypto before is an absolute critical predictor of success. A strong existing network in crypto is something that can't really be valued. You also have to consider that your project is probably basically a startup, right? You're not an established business. You're just trying to get everything going. So you're going to have a smaller team where everybody is going to be wearing many different types of hats. And so in this sort of a situation, ideally, everyone has some sort of a specialty and some sort of an experience that they can really take and run, but they also need to be able to be a team player and cover, other areas of expertise. And this is where someone who's been around for a while really matters, because one experienced pro can absolutely do the work of like a dozen brand new people that you just hired off of Upwork. So you want that. It might take you a little longer and it's really hard to find, but it's absolutely worth it to put the time and effort into assembling the best team you can. All right, security. Security is the most important aspect of your project. A poorly designed code is going to result in a poor user experience or exploits. An exploit can drain your contract, give funds to a hacker, lock funds forever. It's just a bad time. You don't want anything to do with that. As we all know, DeFi is built on smart contracts, and once a smart contract is deployed, they're immutable. They can't be changed. So you need to take extreme care when you're pushing your contract to the public. You probably want to make sure, if you have a complex code base or any sort of a unique code base off of something that's been run a million times, you're going to want to invest in an audit. And you're probably going to want to make sure that it's pen tested on top of that audit. And after you've had that audit and that pen test, you want to pen test it again to make sure any changes that happen during the audit work. Deploying a project first and then getting an audit, not a great idea, because it pretty much serves no purpose except as a marketing gimmick. So you want to get your audit prior to your deployment so you can make all the changes you need behind the scenes. It's also really important that not all audits are created equally, right? So take the time to actually understand who your audit firm is and what they're pointing out and what sorts of advice they're giving you, if any at all. Bug bounties. Definitely consider using bug bounties, because this is going to incentivize your community to go through and try and find things that may have been skipped in your audit and pen testing and internal processes. Also, just work with us. So we provide free contract reviews, and we also provide consulting services. We have seen all sorts of crazy situations, all sorts of exploits, all sorts of hacks, all sorts of scams and rugs and crazy situations. We're a pretty good wealth of information in terms of creating a successful project. So just come on in, shoot me a DM, chat in our chat. We are always here to answer questions. Like, this is literally why I pay people. We pay people to answer questions because we want to answer your questions, because we want to make DeFi safer and more enjoyable for everyone. Math. I know, you probably didn't think that I was going to bring up math, but math is probably one of the most underrated factors in a project. There's a lot of math that goes into your smart contracts and why they work. And honestly, mathematical and logic incompatibilities are one of the most common reasons for critical failures that I've seen. You have to remember, a smart contract is a computer program. Computers have limits. A lot of the equations that are going to go into your project's design, like emission curves or mint equations or token distributions, all of these crazy equations that you may not even have realized are going to be going into all of the libraries and foundations of your project, they have irrational numbers and they have limits. So you'll notice that many of the equations on the screen are going to have E's and I's and other sorts of irrational numbers. Computers hate irrational numbers. So you need to really think about limits and rounding up and scaling. Because if you don't linearize your equation or estimate a curve, your computer is going to overflow and your code is going to crash and burn. Anyways, you don't need to know everything, but math is something that you need to actually think about, and at the very least, make sure that your logic flow is sound and the libraries you're using are compatible with each other. Sustainability. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. When you're here in DeFi, you need to make sure that, again, your allocation is there, that you have a treasury. And honestly, users like to see some amount of a treasury there. Obviously, you don't want to get too greedy with it, but the amount a team can spend on a project signals both commitment and ability to accomplish goals, as well as get through unfortunate events. It's something that might not always seem fair to the user, but again, you're going to come up with all sorts of situations that are going to need to be dealt with. And if you're not able to deal with them, everybody loses. Also, if we're prospectively analyzing a team's propensity to like pull some sort of a scam, how financially committed to a project is one way that you can think about an indicator of persistence. It's also part of the reason why KYC services are honestly among some of the best values in the business, because it provides a permanent signal of not only commitment to the project, but financial outlay. You're also going to want to mind your supply expansions, which is the expansion of your tokens at a farm mints or project mints. If you don't keep an eye on this, you're just going to wind up getting, inflation and all sorts of unfortunate problems that happen from like these large emissions. You need to be able to put on a show without being completely full of shit. So if we can think about it, what do LARPers and yield farm operators or DeFi project operators have in common? Generally, both of them are pretending to be something they're not. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. So when you're talking and marketing, you're going to generally like try and have some sort of utility or mechanism that makes your farm sustainable. And honestly, while some of these may work, a lot of them may not. And some of these factors that you're going to advertise and that users look for are just recycled cards that don't necessarily work. But honestly, the promise of things to come that may or may not actually work or may or may not actually come creates people, it makes people want to just hold your asset, which creates a sync that's honestly more effective than any one of the syncs you may or may not be promising. But on the flip side, you can't straight up lie to your people, because if you have straight up lied or just done something, the second that something goes wrong in your project, and something will always go wrong in your project, unhappy investors can see through these blatant lies, and you'll end up in a fun cycle that you just can't get out of. So it's a careful balance of being able to like hype your community and say like, yeah, just wait until what's coming next quarter, we're gonna do the thing, and actually being able to follow through to some degree. Works. But anyways, that's where I'll end it. Please come and say hello, hang out in our chats, hang out in our socials. We want to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. That is quite a long presentation, I think. So what do you think, Wenjia?
It's very useful, I think. Every point is very important for the developers, and I think we can learn from her a lot.
Yeah, cool. Actually, both our guest speakers tonight, they spoke about security. So
Yeah.
I do think security is a quite important issue in the crypto world. And we still have three workshops left. And from the next workshop, we will invite the real project founder and the key person to join the workshop with us. and
Cool.
we will hear what they are going to say. Yeah, and Wenjia, do you have anything to tell us interestingly? And
You mean about the project?
it could be anything. It's just because this is your first time to appear in our workshop. So
Yeah, the first time. So I have to say hello to everyone. I will see you later, the next time and the third time, and I will show up every time then.
Okay, cool. So do remember, we still have 3 workshops left.
Can't wait to hear from them, because I know the next one, one of our guests will be the Platypus, right? They are very, very famous on our ecosystem, and I think they will give us very good experience on how to build a good project.
Okay, cool. We are a bit late for this workshop, so how about we say goodbye to our audience, and let's see again next time.
Okay, see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you next time.